Now a question. What do Myanmar, Pakistan and Sri Lanka have in common? Number one, growing Chinese influence. Chinese President Xi Jinping has visited two of these countries, infused billions of dollars into all of them. All three countries are a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Common factor number two, all three countries are India's immediate neighbours. How India responds to the developments across the border is crucial for its diplomatic goals and its role in the post-pandemic world. Allow me to explain, and I'll start with another question. What role does India want to play in the post-pandemic world? India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently told his party that India has a big role to play in the emerging new world order. The Prime Minister drew parallels between this decade and the one following the Second World War. He reportedly said that unlike earlier, India is not going to be a mute spectator this time. India is expanding its global footprint, becoming more vocal at global forums, reaffirming its presence. India recently paid its United Nations regular budget assessment in full. New Delhi has entered the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member. This is the third time since the end of the Cold War. India will stay on this council for the next 2 years. India has plans and a list of issues it wants to raise. The expansion of the Security Council to begin with, in both permanent and non-permanent categories. Counter-terrorism, again, a priority for India, as is multilateralism, taking everyone along. And if there are priorities and opportunities, there are also challenges for India at the world stage. The biggest challenge comes from China. Beijing heads at least 6 United Nations organizations. It has previously shielded Pakistani terrorists. It has raised Kashmir at the UNSC at Pakistan's behest. China is now blocking a resolution on the Myanmar coup. What China is doing is basically playing politics. It is trading its veto power at global forums for support, land and business in the neighborhood. India needs to break the streak. If India wants to emerge as a global leader in the post-pandemic world, it must build strategic alliances, expand its outreach programs and begin all of this by concentrating on its neighborhood first, emerging as its clear, uncontested leader. It's a neighborhood that is evolving, experimenting with democracy, being threatened by dictatorship, witnessing changing geopolitics. India must respond to all of this with seasoned diplomacy. 30 years ago, India condemned the military rule in Myanmar. Today, it may not be that simple. India should not burn bridges. It should not feel compelled to follow the West. Do you know why? Because that would only push Myanmar closer to China. And if that happens, India has more to lose than, say, the United States, which is threatening sanctions. There is counter-terrorism, strategic projects involved. India must maintain diplomatic ties with Myanmar. At the same time, it must be careful to not legitimize dictatorship. The situation in Sri Lanka also calls for an innovative approach. It is a turf where India and China are fighting for greater influence. Heated exchanges between Colombo and New Delhi only help the dragon. China will try to whip up nationalistic sentiments in Sri Lanka. Like it did in Nepal, India must use trust to counter China's wolf warrior diplomacy. It must support the neighborhood, use programs like Vaccine Maitri to steer the region away from dependence on Chinese checkbooks. India must shift the balance away from Beijing, rely on history, people-to-people connect, culture, accept the olive branch when offered, extend one, safeguard its national interests, cement ties with neighbours. India must win the trust and support of its neighbours as it eyes a global leadership role. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.